Dragon Ballers, if you're looking to buy Dragon Ball Super or One Piece sealed product, make sure to get 5% off using my link to Mystic TCG down in the description. You can also sell cards to them using their Facebook link, which is also down in the description. Yo, what's going on, Dragon Ballers? Welcome back to another deck profile. This time, I'm here with Thomas, who finished up 3rd place in the recent online webcam Zenkai Cup. Thomas, how you doing, man?
I'm doing all right. How you doing?
I am doing well, man. Thanks for coming on to the channel. I was actually super interested to get your deck profile, as you probably heard from the video I did yesterday. Super interesting deck. We haven't seen Majin Vegeta do super well in quite a while, so it's always cool to see that deck come back. Secondly, it's really cool to see Green make a return. And third, there's just a kind of a tried and true aggro deck from the way I looked at it. But I'm definitely interested to see what your thoughts are. So first and foremost, why Majin Vegeta? Is this something you've been playing for a long time? Do you just like the character, or like why this deck?
It's a little bit of everything. One, like I got into Dragon Ball right at set 11, and so like, and Majin Vegeta was always my favorite character. So this guy like clicked for me right off the bat, and I built it right when set 11 came out when I first started, and then like I said, like it's just like a proven green aggro deck, and like I've even after the ball got errata and stuff like that, I tried to play that for a little while, and then I was like, well, maybe I'll just focus on the Majin Vegeta package a little bit more. And as I did it, I just slowly got it more consistent, and it's a very consistent, really strong aggro deck.
Gotcha. And you've been running this for a long time?
Oh yeah, I've never taken this deck apart. Like I've always just made a few changes, did that.
Gotcha. Very cool. All right, so let's just get right on into it. So one of the base strengths of the deck, the leader, is like base double strike, which is super powerful. But I do want to get into all these Majin Vegeta cards, because in the past we haven't seen people really lean into Prideful Warrior. But actually, how new is this one drop Vegeta? This is a recent tournament pack card, is that right?
It's from it's a promo from a few sets ago. I think it's been out for 8 months or so, 6-8 months, something like that. Like it's been out for a little while. It's one of those that I think people look at the deck and they're like, okay, leader double strike, Evil Awakens double strike, 3 drops of double strike. Okay, this is just you're paying 1 for a single striker. It's not that great.
Right.
Sometimes it may or may not do anything.
Right, and the way you have it constructed, it's actually free, but we'll talk about that in just a little bit. Before we get into the Unison, I do want to talk about some of the other choices, because I think Evil Awaken is pretty standard. Your 1-drop double striker takes a life, and I think that Life and Death is also an incredible card, but also a standard card in the deck that people have played in previous iterations. Now, we know that this card is new, Majin Defiance, and I know that Proud Defiance came out in the recent anniversary box. And yes, I'll be honest, this card reads a little bit weird, but I want to just hear your take on like what this card brings to the deck.
What this does is, like, what it brings to it for the most part is another layer of consistency, because for a long time the only way that you could get the 3-drop on the bottom of the deck was by the super combo. Mm-hmm. But with this, in addition to a couple other things that we can talk about later, but being able to just, if you have the 3-drop in your hand, you just draw a card, put this on the bottom for free, is really, really big. Like, you don't have to commit a super combo just to get that on the bottom in an attack that you may or may not want to commit a super combo to. And then if you're on the draw, it gives you a free blocker, which greens, typically it's got dormant, which is a great negate, but the fact that it doesn't stop the first attack, being able to just dormant and then block the very first attack means you only have 1 attack that you have to deal with for the whole turn, which makes it really big. And then the fact that it has barrier just makes it a little bit harder to get rid of. And then the extra activate main, which I've honestly never used before, but it's always there, that if you're able to attack into a Unison to get it down to 1 marker, you can just put that on the bottom of the deck and get rid of the last marker.
Gotcha. So when you explain like that, it actually makes perfect sense to me, which is awesome, which is exactly why I wanted to get you on the channel. So yeah, it's a setup card. It's that blocker, which pairs perfectly with Dormant, and it does, like you said, yeah, it gets you your probably Life and Death to the bottom of your deck, or whichever servant you need. Yep. So that actually makes perfect sense to me. All right, cool. So I think that wraps up the Majin Vegeta part of the deck. So I do want to talk a lot about this Unison, because this Unison is super interesting. So I already talked about in yesterday's video how you can cheat this card out because your leader is base double strike, so you're going to be putting your opponent to 7 or more cards in hand. But the most interesting thing I find about this Unison is that you get to play your 1-drop for free, which is the Majin Defiance, right? And that allows you to then cheat out your Prideful Warrior. But the downside of this card is that your opponent gets a draw, and that's what I think is so interesting about this. So yeah, I just want to know your thoughts on that. Like, is it a big deal that your opponent gets the draw? Is it not a big deal because you're killing them so fast? Like, what's your thoughts?
Like at face value, like you look at that, and the idea of giving your opponents cards is always bad. Like, you don't want to give your opponent that extra resource. You don't want to give them that extra chance to draw something that could stop you. But with the amount that you're comboing in this deck, most of my attacks, like even like the leader on the front side and like the 1-drops, I'm going to combo at least one card into it just to make it that much bigger. So me giving my opponent one card to be swinging 20 and 35k double strikers, so they're having to commit 4, 5, 6 cards just to get out of the attack. That one extra card doesn't really do them all that good. Like, I've had plenty of games where, you know, if I'm on the play, I'll go into my, you know, the end of my turn 2 if they're not dead already. You know, yeah, they've got 12, 13, 14 cards in hand because, you know, I took them from 8 to 2 or 8 to 1, whatever. But then if you're swinging nothing but 30k double strikers, that's 6 cards out of their hand with every swing just to not die.
Right.
So that one card really does not benefit them that much.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was figuring. That the answer is going to be, you know, you're killing them so fast that one card doesn't really matter. And that makes sense. I mean, yeah, when you're this aggressive, that is a super interesting thing. And I do like the fact this plays the 1-drop for free, and it also plays Evil Awaken for free as well. Obviously, I'm sure you'd probably rather play Majin Defiance, but either one works. So getting your 1-drops in play for free allows you to be more aggressive, which is a super interesting thing. Yeah, very, very cool tech here. I don't think a lot of Majin Vegeta players were looking at this card, so definitely want to give you kudos for that.
Also, like, if for some reason, you know, your opponent does have a good defense, maybe you were on the, you know, maybe they were on the play, you had kind of bricked a little bit in the early turns. The fact that later on you can take your life and that Rejuvenate could come in really big, because that Rejuvenate represents 2 cards. Once your leader awakens, you activate main to take that life and draw a card. So that Rejuvenate represents 2 cards you get to draw that turn.
Right, yeah, and that is pretty cool too. This guy sets up his own Rejuvenate, like, because he puts a card underneath himself where you don't have to have like another copy of the Unison. That's pretty cool.
Exactly, yeah.
All right, so 4 Dormant, super standard, but 2 Charismatic. I'm definitely curious about that because, you know, Charismatic, normally you see a green Unison and you see 4 Charismatics. So, yeah, why only 2 Charismatics?
Honestly, for a long time, I was on no Charismatics in this list because I was just going, you know, full throttle aggro with it. But sometimes there are those little bit issues, like you have to get rid of some cards, like your opponent plays out blockers or things like that. And sometimes it just helps to get rid of these little key cards that just help your opponent stop your game plan. And I wanted to go up to 4, or I considered going up to 4, but I wanted to keep the list as lean as possible because it is so consistent, and I didn't want to go past the 53 cards. Like, even to me, like, I wanted to be at 52, but I could not find anything else that I really, really wanted to cut. So, and 2 feels fine for me because it'll pick off like 1 or 2, you know, little pesky cards that you don't want to have to deal with, and then just gives you an extra 5k combo power.
Gotcha. Alrighty. Now this Bobbity, to be reminded what he does. So when he's played, so you're not playing the Quickening. That card was errated, so it's probably just not as great anymore. And then look at top 7, add a Vegeta with Servant. So this searches a good majority of your deck. So I guess that brings up an interesting question. What are your thoughts on the Quickening post errata? Do you think it works in certain builds? Why aren't you playing in this build?
I think the erratic on the Quickening made it where it's not unplayable. It's a little bit harder to play because you can't go off until turn 3. The issue that I had with the ball chain was that you have to either go full barrier 3-drops, because there's a 3-drop barrier and a 3-drop deflect. And depending on what the matchup is, unless you want to go a 2-2 split, but then you risk it being in your life or something like that. And if your opponent answers that, the whole rest of the chain is just dead. You can't do anything unless you're going to, you know, pay for and hard cast the Majin Buu, which in this deck you absolutely do not ever want to have to do because you can do so much more for energy. So I decided that I was just going to focus entirely on the Majin Vegeta package and just cut the ball chain completely. And like my success rate or my win rate with the deck just skyrocketed after I cut the ball chain.
Very cool. I like that analytical approach where you saw your win percentage go up. So that moves on to 2 copies of Goku Fated Rivals. So I noticed there's no Piccolo in this deck. Did you try Piccolo at any point? Did it just not feel necessary? What are your thoughts? And that, it's really quick, that card seems a lot stronger with God Sealing gone. So I'm definitely curious to know what you think about that.
It's absolutely, like, it's great now that God Seal is gone. It's a great card. You know, again, removing a barrier card is awesome. It also gives you that extra utility that if you need another way to put your 3-drop on the bottom of the deck, you can just combo with it and then use the Goku to put 3-drop on the bottom of the deck.
That is a pretty cool combo enabler, yeah. Wow.
I also like the fact that, again, it's another double striker. So realistically, if you've got your Evil Awakened, your Life and Death, and a Fated Rival or something like that out there, in reality, you only ever have to connect with 4 attacks to win the game because there's so much inherent double and triple strike in the deck. So I left that at 2, and most of the time, I found, like, I originally had the Goku and the Piccolo at a 2-2 split when it first came out, but this deck kills so consistently on turn 3, I would rather have the 30k double striker, because once you put it out there, if you're swinging all these big giant double strike bodies, your opponent is going to have to negate something.
Right.
They're going to have to counter one of your attacks, which essentially makes the 3-drop a dual attack double strike. And the Piccolo just didn't seem to be as important to me. And if I'm going into turn 3, I would rather have the dual attack double strike and the double strike than opposed to, you know, the double strike and then 2 single strikers.
Gotcha. No, that makes perfect sense. All right, and then I'm noticing 2 Paragus to sacrifice. So is this like vital to the deck in some way or another?
It's not super vital. I found that in certain games that, honestly, like, this deck's worst matchup is green because of Dormant, and Dormant kills a lot of little stuff, you know, make it where you can't attack much.
Mm-hmm.
So, and there are certain games where I had to go, you know, 4, 5, 6 turns sometimes, and because of the fact that the Servant Majin Vegetas don't restand during your charge step, you end up with a flooded board of cards that you can't do anything with. Like, you can Overlord once per turn, but if you got 3 of them sitting out there, you need something else to do with them. So being able to, you know, roll Unison up, free play the Paragus of Sacrifice, each one of the, like, you know, it represents an extra card you can draw every turn. So that gives you Overlord to draw a card, Paragus to draw a card, Leader Effect to draw 2 cards. So that I can put up to 4 cards in your hand every turn.
Gotcha. Very cool. And then just on the same note we were talking about, Zarbon, the Emperor's Attendant, this allows you to restand your servants during your opponent's turn, which kind of cheats the servant mechanic, right? So this card, would you consider bumping it up? I'm almost thinking, like, what if you just drop Paragus Sacrifice and go up to 4 Zarbon? I know it's 4 of a non-green card, which can be awkward, but what are your thoughts on that?
I think I've had it at 3 for a little while. I never thought about going 4. 2 feels fine. The issue is like, my core package, I don't want a whole lot of non-green cards in there. Just for those reasons, like, you don't want to have to charge it. You know, Dormant, you can only pitch a green card, so I wanted to keep the non-green cards down to a minimum. But I really like the Zarbon for the tech that, one, yes, it can restand a lot of my servants, but also on the same plan of, like, Dormant with a new blocker. If I Dormant, block, combo Zarbon to save the blocker, I can restand the blocker and then block the next attack and just shuts my opponent's turn down for the whole.
That is actually a really cool interaction, because a lot of times when you block, your opponent's not going to invest the combo power, so then you might just get the Zarbon for free. Like, that's a really cool interaction as well.
So, like, what's the point of wasting, you know, 1 or 2 cards to kill this blocker that you know, I'm probably just going to let die anyway because it can't attack. So they don't see that when I go, okay, well, I'll Zarbon and just block your next attack too. That's
a very cool interaction. And then Dark Deathball is a card that I'm liking a lot in green. Keeping that tempo of not having to pay energy for it is really nice. In this deck, I think it's a little bit less so, but I think you still, like, if you have dead copies of Unison or dead copies of Dormant, it's good to pitch those. You probably activated this mostly for free, right?
Oh, yeah. It's usually there for free. It's there 99% of the time to stop the battle card floodgates.
Right.
Because most of the time when your opponent goes into their turn 3, they're not going to sit there with 3 energy open. So they're going to hope that the 1 floodgate they drop is going to be enough to stop you for the turn. And if you got the Dark Deathball and you take that floodgate away, then it's usually just fair game to just turn everything sideways.
Gotcha. And then 2 Majin Buu throwing the enemy just as a free negate, I'm assuming?
Yep, just another free negate, which, you know, like I said, I love the fact that with the blockers and things like that, you know, I can Dormant, block, and then, you know, Spirit Boost 2 to stop the next attack. Like, being able to just shut my... Like, I wanted to have a couple different ways where I could just shut my opponent's turn down.
Gotcha. And then for anyone who does not know, the Great Saiyaman S super combo is actually the best super combo for this deck, because putting cards to the bottom is very important, like Thomas said. So if you're wondering why Great Saiyaman over Paragus, that's the reason why. And then going through the...
you run any other super combo in this deck other than that. Like, I couldn't even begin to, like, have a discussion about any other super combo.
For sure, yep. 1 copy of Gohan, Latent Power Unleashed. So yeah, it seems like you don't have a huge focus on killing Unisons, but I guess you're just trying to kill opponents before their Unisons get too out of hand, huh?
Right, exactly. And there's sometimes, like, I wanted at least 1 in there. That's 1 card I've debated on going up to a second one, because blue is such a big thing in the meta right now. Being able to, you know, say swing, you know, a double striker or something like that, you know, opponent's like, okay, well, I'll just you know, activate the auto, roll it down, and be like, okay, well, I'll just go ahead and throw out this Gohan and kill it.
Right. And then 1 Golden Frieza Newfound Might. Is this more for the defensive purpose or for the just offensive dual attacking Unison thing?
It gives me another way to close out the games if I can't find like my other pieces and things like that. And it's something that most people aren't going to be expecting. You know, if you're just sitting there trying to flood the board with battle cards, they don't really expect you to drop this big, 30k dual attack triple striker. Which, like Golden Frieza is great defensively, and against some decks that also want to spam cards out on the field, it's really good for that. But the few times that the times that I do use it, it's just to close out the games.
Gotcha. And then the final thing about the main board I'm curious about is the SCR choice. You're going with Pan here instead of like Cell Max or even the Primal Carnage. So just walk me through your different SCR choices and thoughts of stuff you've tried.
I did for a little while there. I tried Kibito Kai. I considered Cell Max for a little while. I thought about Cell Xeno for a little while. The Carnage was good. The biggest thing I found with this deck is that most turns I'm tapping out. So having like the 1 energy open for the grade 8 and things like that, or Kibito Kai, it was just made it really clunky. I'm like, well, if I want to activate my SCR, I have to not be as aggressive on this turn, which gives my opponent more time to, not be dying. So I decided to go with the Pan for 2 reasons. One, because it's a free floodgate on my opponent's turn if I need to use it for that. But also on the early turns, like I've had several games where if I'm on the play, I can kill on turn 2. And if I flood the board, and then I can just free play Pan as just a 40k attack to close the game out. Gotcha. And that was the biggest thing there. And sometimes, depending on what the opponent's doing, I thought about Cell Xeno in that slot as well. But because a lot of my guys are very little, it's really hard to get to the 12 number for successor. So Pan was just seemed all around better for me.
Gotcha. No, that makes sense. I mean, Pan will always have the upside of being a free SCR, which not all of the SCRs have the ability to do. So that makes perfect sense. All right, then to the Z deck. So I think at this point, this is a pretty standard green Z deck with the new addition of Returning of the Destroyer. There's a new card from the Zenkai Dash Pack. But I'm just curious, like, how much in this deck do you generally go into the Z deck? Is it often at all?
The thing that I use the most in the Z deck is the Vegeta Surmounting the Impossible. Because again, it's another way if I need to get down to that 5 life, or I need to get down to 4 life to turn the super combos on, or I just need a way to get my 3-drop on the bottom of the deck. It gives another way to do that. But no matter how consistent you think your deck is, it's never going to be 100%. And sometimes you just draw dead, even if you draw 15 cards a turn. Sometimes you just don't have anything you want to play. And so all the cards in my Z deck, with the exception of the Goku, give me another double striker that I can put on the board. And as soon as my opponent goes down to 2, every attack that I swing is threatening lethal. And so those are all cards that do different things in different situations, but they all represent lethal when my opponent gets to 2 life.
Man, I just find it so funny, the raw amount of cards that now allow you to put things to the bottom of your deck in this specific leader. Like that's such a good, like, random thing for this leader specifically that is just, I find so funny.
I think a lot of people have overlooked that fact. I know that most people like they see on my YouTube channel where I play my Vegeta a lot, and like they kind of just overlook it. They glaze over it, that it's not good, it's inconsistent, things like that. But with the anniversary box card, you've got 4 copies there. You've got the 4 super combos. You've got the 2 faded rivals. You've got their Surmounting the Impossible. You've got like 12, 14 ways in this deck to put that 3-drop on the bottom of the deck and just keep playing it every single turn.
Yeah, that play line has certainly become like super, super consistent. And then you do have a side deck down here that we talked about a little bit. So this is a best of 1 tournament, but you just had a build that you just created a sideboard for. So I guess in general, just maybe talk to us a little bit about what you want each card for what matchup.
Yeah. When I went to submit my list to Deck Planet, I just used one that I already had because I've been testing this to play it in best of 3 matchups. But this was also back before Nats, when Blue made a big resurgence with the Crimson and things like that. So I was more worried about the red matchup than anything else. So I played like the 3 Shin is, again, to stop the Gogeta 8 from coming out and just, smashing into me and killing me. The Majin Exterminators, I chose those over the Devores just because hand control is still a thing. And if you see it, it can really, really mess you up, especially with Magenta potentially like becoming a popular deck that can make you discard several cards a turn. Being able to just use the Majin Exterminator and just for free play it, draw a card. I thought was really good. And then a lot of the decks, like the new Bojack, blue. A lot of the blue decks do it now. Gamma does it. They want to play battle cards on your turn. I feel like the two Koitsukai is a really good thing, and it also has the added benefit that again, when you activate it, you can put cards on the bottom of your deck, which means I'm putting the 3-drop on the bottom of the deck with another way to do that. The Golden Frieza, I chose that because I wanted to. If I wanted to switch that out for like my King Piccolo unit or something like that, it's another way to stop the Gogeta 8 from just killing me. Which is something I really worried about. Like I don't like the fact that I would go into a game with the potential of them just being like, okay, pay 4, you die. Even though I have the deck built where I have very, very few cards that I can't combo with, which was a big thing for me as throughout the whole deck building process, having as much combo power as possible. So it's not as bad, but the Shin and Golden Frieza also was helping with the Sin matchup because that deck is scary. 30k Triple Strike crit is terrible, which is why I got hit, things like that.
Right.
And then I played the one of Blue Impulse, which is another thing, kind of like the Koitsukai. If your opponent goes to place something on your turn, you can just pay 1 and nuke their board. Doesn't ignore barrier, but it can just blow up their whole board for 1, which is really, really strong. I play the one of the Kakusa, the Beastly Maiden. I'm not sure if I'm going to keep that in there because, again, I tap out a lot. So going into my opponent's turn with 2 up, I'm only going to do that if I feel like the games are going to go long, if I'm going to have that energy up, and if my opponent, I think my opponent's looking to just kill me with 1 card. Like they're looking for this 1 key card that they just want to swing into me and kill me with. Kakusa gives me a way to, when they go to swing in, I can just stop them from killing me. And then the one of Vegeta, Resolute Agent Destruction, is for the yellow matchup because yellow likes to spam the board with a bunch of little barrier guys, and this gives me a way to deal with that.
Awesome. So yeah, man, I think that was a really thorough walk through the whole deck. I really appreciate it. I think the viewers will as well. Yeah, if you want to wrap up with any shout outs you want to throw out there.
Yeah, I would like, if I know, you're the big main guy that everybody watches for the most part, but if anybody wants to give a shout out to the little guys, I do have a YouTube channel. It's called Dragon Dad Gaming. I do want to give a big shout out to Pro Mats. They did all the mats that I play. Like I did I streamed the whole event for Zenkai Cup, and I played 2 different mats out there. I did those, so big shout out to them. Huge shout out to all the guys in the VSA that stay with me the whole way. I had the stamina to just sit there and watch me for 7 hours to play this deck and cheered me on the whole way and kept my energy up and kept me in the focus and in the game the whole time. So huge shout out to all of them. And then also want to shout out my buddy Mason, who convinced me to play in the Zenkai Cup about 14 hours before the event actually started. So I wasn't even going to play the event until the night before when he was like, just play the event, just play the event. I was like, you know what, fine, I'll play the event. So thanks to him for, finally convincing me to just play the event. I'm happy that I did well. So
awesome, man. Huge congratulations. And I'll put your YouTube link down in the description of this video for anyone who wants to check it out. Thank you for your time. We'll see you next time.
See you.